Hello friends, I welcome you again to my channel. In the last class, in the last part, we have studied what is chemistry. We have studied that what is the importance of studying chemistry. Then we have studied about matter, what are the classifications of matter at the microscopic or particle level and macroscopic work level. How do you classify a matter? Then we have also studied something about how the atoms and molecules and compounds are basically defined. Now in today's class, this is the part 2 of the some basic concepts of chemistry and of class 11th. And in today's class, what we are going to discuss is we will now be discussing, focusing mainly on matter. थोड़ा बहुत the matter के बारे में we will study. And in that, what first we are going to study are the what are the properties of the matter. How do you measure a matter? What is the SI unit? What is the difference between mass and a weight? What do you understand by now? The properties of matter and their measurement is what we are going to discuss today. First of all, let's understand properties of matter. Properties of matter are divided into two different properties. Any matter has two different properties. The first property is the physical property. These are those properties which can be observed. Please remember, they can be observed and measured without changing any composition in the matter. I am not going to change the composition of the matter. मैं matter के composition को change नहीं करूंगी. लेकिन these are physical. The name itself suggests physical properties. So these properties, these physical properties of the matter, of any matter, basically are the ones which can be observed and measured without changing the composition. For example, let's say if I am talking about color, let's say, so if I say a matter, let's say my pen is red in color, my book is black in color, okay, my paper is white in color. So I am not changing the composition of pen, book and paper. So what I am just saying is this is the color of my matter. All pen, book and paper, they are matters. So what I am doing is I am just describing the matter. I am just describing the property of the matter. I am just describing the physical property of the matter by defining its color. And I am not changing the composition of the matter. Next physical property can be odor. If I smell any matter, if I smell, I say it's smelling very nice. It's smelling beautiful. So the smell, I am not changing the composition of the matter. I am just observing it. I am just measuring it, and I am just saying that this is the physical property, which is color, odor, melting point, boiling point I measure, density I measure. So all these things I just measure. I just measure the property of the matter and I just observe the property of the matter without changing any chemical change. I am not doing anything on the matter. So on the matter there is no chemical change occurring. कोई केमिकल चेंज नहीं कर रहे हैं हम मैटर के ऊपर, इसीलिए हम उन्हें बोलते हैं फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज. सो जो प्रॉपर्टीज हम मेजर कर सकते हैं, ऑब्जर्व कर सकते हैं मैटर की, जिसमें कि मैटर की कॉम्पोजिशन चेंज ना हो, देयर वुड बी नो चेंज इन द कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ द मैटर and the properties would be just be, we will be observing it and measuring it, are called as physical properties, and these are some physical properties that you can measure or observe in a matter. Now, another kind of a property are called as chemical properties. So, the chemical property, as the name itself suggests, the chemical properties are those properties in which will require a chemical change to occur. For example, let's say if let's say let's say I have a matter, and let's say in that matter I have an acid. Okay. Now you cannot, if let's say I have any acid, let's say HCl I have, hydrochloric acid is a matter because it has some volume, it has some mass, okay, it occupies some space and all. So HCl is an acid. You cannot taste HCl, right? So if you cannot taste HCl, and I have given you HCl, but you don't know that I have given you HCl. How you are going to identify that it is an acid? Acid, I have given you HCl in a beaker, which is a matter, and I know that I have given you HCl, but I have told you, you tell me by observing it or by using certain chemical methods whether it's an acid or a base. Okay, so what you are going to do as a student, what you are going to do is, you are going to react any acid when reacts with a base, it forms a salt. So what you are going to do is, you are going to react it with a base, and you will see whether a salt is being formed or not. Right, if the salt is formed, that means it's an acid. Okay, so what you have done is, you have added in another chemical called as a base to verify whether the liquid that is given to you is an acid or not. That means what you are going to do is, you are changing the property, you are changing the composition of the substance, you are changing chemically the composition of the substance, that is your acid. That is why what you are observing is the acidity of the acid by reacting it with a base. So this acidity, which is the property of all the acids, is basically a chemical property. For example, on the contrary, I give you a base. Okay, if I give you a base, let's say NaOH, and I ask you whether it's a base or not, tell me. So what you're going to do is, you are going to react it with an acid, right, and check whether a salt is being formed or not. If the salt is formed, the liquid that you have been given is a base. So what you are actually doing in the experiment is, you are checking the basicity of the alkali that is given to you, right? So that is what you're using an acid or chemical to check the basicity of the alkali that is given to you, right? So what you are doing is, basically you are doing a chemical reaction, you are doing some chemical change to check the basicity of the base that is given to you. So again, basicity is a chemical property of the matter. Also combustibility, if I want to know whether a particular matter is I want to check its combustibility, the property, the chemical property called as combustibility. If I want to check, so what I'm going to do, I have to react it with oxygen, so that I understand what is the rate of combustibility, right? So what I have to do is, I will be reacting it with oxygen, and I'll be getting, let's say I have some hydrocarbon and I reacted with oxygen. Hydrocarbon is again a matter. So if I've given you hydrocarbon and I want to say, I told you that please check the combustibility. So what you're going to do is, you're going to react it with oxygen, and you will get CO2 and water. So this is how you are going to check that yes, I'm getting CO2 and water, and the substance that I have got is combustible. So combustibility is another chemical property that you check for any matter by doing some chemical reaction by changing its chemical composition, right? So in chemical property, chemical reactions take place, and there would be a chemical change that is going to occur. So in all these things, there would be a chemical change that is going to occur, and thus they are called as chemical properties of any matter. And when I have to describe the physical properties of any matter, in that I don't have to do any reaction, a chemical reaction. No chemical reaction takes place. I just observe and measure the substance, the composition of the substance, and I check about the physical properties. So these are the two properties that any matter is going to have or will be associated with any matter: the physical properties and the chemical properties. Now let's move a little further and let's understand about measurement of a matter. Now how do you measure a matter? Now measuring of any matter basically consists of two things: the number and the units. For example, I say go and bring 2 atta. Now what do you understand by 2 atta or 2 wheat? What do you understand by that? You might understand that she is saying let's get 2 grams of wheat or atta, or she's saying let's get 2 kg of wheat or atta. What exactly she wants to know? Or get 2 boris of, or 2 bundles of packets of uh, atta or wheat. Now what she wants to say. So I have to be the atta is a matter or a wheat is a matter, right? So I have to be very specific and in saying that please bring 2 kgs of atta, or I would be saying to bring 2 kgs of wheat, right? Then it will be clear to you and it will be clear to the person you are going to go to buy the wheat that I want 2 kgs of atta or wheat, right? So that means for measuring any matter, what you need is you need a number and you need a unit. Then only you are going to measure that. That's the only way you are going to measure a matter. Let's say I take another example. Let's say I tell you, please bring 2 milk. Now what you are going to understand by 2 milk? 2 milk could be 2 milliliters of milk, or it could be 2 packets of milk, or it could be 2 liters of milk. Now what I really want from you to buy. So I have to be specific. Milk again is a matter. So I have to be specific in telling you that you need to bring 2 liters of milk, right? So this means you will go and the person from whom you are going to buy will measure milk in 2 liters and will give it to you. So matter needs to be measured. Every matter needs to be measured with a number and a unit associated with it. Also, let's say another example, a last example I gave it to you, like weight of Ramesh. Let's say I tell you weight of Ramesh is 75. Now what are you going to assume? 75. 75 could be 75 grams. It could be 75 milligrams. It could be 75 kilograms. Anything it could be there, right? So I would say weight of Ramesh is 75 kilograms. It would be clear to you. Okay, he weighs 75 kg and so on and so forth. So till now you just need to understand that whenever you need to measure any matter, whatever you see around you is a matter. So anything that you measure, any matter that you measure should be associated with a number and units. So this is how you measure any matter. Now let's go a little further. हम आगे चलते हैं and we'll say that in what units, what we have said, okay, numbers could be anything, right? But what would be the units? Now the units earlier were divided into two sections. One used to be the English system, another used to be the metric system, right? So what happened? What was there were two system units were there: English system unit and metric system unit. Now the English system unit never included decimal numbers. So that was a problem with English system. So English system never included decimal numbers. जैसे कि, for example, if I say please bring 2.5 liter milk, right? So English system of units would never have zero point 0.5 associated with it. So decimal numbers were never included in English system, right? Since English system, so what English system, if I talk about English system, so this 2.5 would be 2 liters of milk. So that zero point 0.5 was never there in the English system. If I say please bring 3.5 kilograms of wheat, so what English system used to understand would be, it is 3 kilograms of wheat. So 0.5 decimals numbers were never included in English system. So that was the reason why it was rejected. So English system of units were rejected because it never included decimal numbers. So what came after that was metric system. So in metric system, the advantage was that it included decimal numbers. That is, if I say 2.5 liters of milk, so it would say yes, 2.5 liters of milk. If I say 2.5 kg of wheat, it would say yes, 2.5 kg. So decimal numbers were very much included in it. But the problem with metric system was that there was no proper unit for measuring certain thing. That is, if I want to measure volumes, so I could measure volume in milliliters, I could measure volumes in decimeter cube, I would measure volume in liters, I could measure volume in centimeter cube. Anything could have been. Some scientists used to measure liters, used to take liters as a unit in metric system. Some scientists used to take milliliters for measuring volume in metric system. Some used to take kg for measuring mass using metric system. Some scientists used to take grams for measuring mass using metric system. So there was no clarity of a certain specific unit for a particular quantity to be measured. So for that reason, this metric system was also boycotted, and later on, what came into existence were the standard international units, or called as SI units. Okay, now the SI units are worldwide accepted by all the scientists, and it was the SI units were first given and were first accepted in 1875 in Paris. Okay, so all the scientists around the world, they gathered, they accepted the SI units, and in 1875 this acceptance was given, and under SI units, there were some basic physical quantities that were being made, and these physical quantities were given certain units that would be accepted by all over the world, and these are called as SI units. Okay, now the seven basic fundamental physical quantities associated with any matter are listed here. First is the length, and it was said that if you are measuring the length of any matter, it would be symbolized as small l, and its unit would be in SI unit would be in meters, and the symbol would be small m. Then it was said that if you are measuring the mass of any matter, it would be written in small m. The SI unit for measuring the mass would be kilograms, and it would be represented in the symbol kg. For measuring the time of any matter, the representation would be T, the unit SI unit would be seconds, and it would be represented by small s. If I want to measure the electric current of any matter, then the symbol would be I, and the SI unit would be amperes, symbol would be capital A. If I want to measure the thermodynamic temperature, or simply the temperature of any matter, it would be the symbol would be capital T for temperature. It would be measured in SI unit of Kelvin, and it would be capital K would be the symbol. If I want to measure the amount of a substance that is present inside any matter, एक मैटर के अंदर कितना सब्सटेंस प्रेजेंट है, कितना पार्टिकल्स प्रेजेंट है, वो देखने के लिए the symbol would be small n. The SI unit for measuring the amount of a substance would be mole, and the symbol would be MOL, mole. For measuring the intensity, luminous intensity, or I can say the speed, intensity is also can be said as speed. For measuring the speed, the symbol would be I and small v, and the SI unit would be candela, and the symbol would be small c and small d. So these were the basic physical quantities that you can measure for any matter with their SI units. So it was very clear that all over the world, if I want to measure the mass, let's say the for mass of let's say of my of gold, let's say if I want to measure gold, and I have put it and I measured gold, so the gold would weigh some, let's say 2.75 kg, right? So this was the standard that was being taken. If I want now, if I want to know more, let's say I want to know volume, if I want to know density, if I want to know something else, so everything, anything that you want to know, volume, density, anything else, whatever you want to know, can be derived from these seven physical quantities. So using these seven physical quantities, you can basically understand, you can basically derive other physical quantities associated with the matter. We will just deal it, just one or two slides after this we are going to deal with it, but you just need to understand these are the seven basic physical quantities with their SI units. And if I want to determine some other physical quantities like volume or density, these could be identified or derived using these basic physical SI unit quantities. Alright. Have a certain look on a basic difference between what do you understand by mass and what do you understand by weight. What is the difference between the two? So mass is defined as the amount of matter present in any substance. How much is the matter in any substance is called as its mass. While the weight is the force exerted by gravity on an object. Apart from having the matter in weight, what you do is, apart from having the amount of matter, there is also a gravitational force that is exerted on you. These two combine together to give you what is called as weight. For example, let's say if I say that my weight is 70 kgs. So what I am trying to say is that the entire matter inside me, like what all matter I would be having. I would be having my blood vessels, I would be having blood, I would be having my water content, I would be having my organs inside, I would be having my brain weight. So everything that I am, my fat, proteins, enzymes, whatever I am made of, that is what is the amount of matter inside me, plus the gravitational pull of the earth is equals to 70 kgs, right? So the amount of matter plus the gravitational pull of earth is called as weight, if I'm talking about my weight or any person's weight. But if I talk about, if I neglect the gravitational pull and I just talk about the amount of matter, if I, let's say I am not exerting any gravitational pull, let's say I go to some other planet whereas there is no gravitation, zero gravitational force. So what I am going to have, whatever I would be having my measurement over there would be my mass. Why? Because whatever matter is there inside me, that is what is being shown on the scale, because the gravitational pull is zero on another planet, right? So that would be my mass. But when I'm talking about weight, I do consider the gravitational pull also along with the amount of matter present in my body. So that would be my weight. So if you go outside, you go outside into some other planet where there is zero gravitational pull. So what I am going to have is my mass and not the weight. So what mass remains the same, it's constant. That comes to the next point. Mass of a substance, mass of any matter is a, or mass of any substance is a constant always, because the amount of matter inside you is not going to change, right? But the weight changes from place to place according to the gravitational pull. Okay, so your weight is not going to be constant, but your mass is going to be constant. In the laboratories, if you make any solutions or anything, so let's say I give you copper sulfate. So if I give you copper sulfate and I'll tell you, okay, please weigh copper sulfate. So you actually don't weigh it, you actually calculate its mass. Or when you go to the analytical balance, to I tell you take 1 gram or of copper sulfate. So you go to the analytical balance in your labs, and what you do is you put one, almost around approximately 1 gram of copper sulfate. So what analytical balances in the laboratory give you is the mass. That is, what is, how much is the copper sulfate present in the crystals that you are adding over the analytical balance. So how much is copper sulfate in there? It would be approximately 1 gram. So analytical balances in the laboratory, they give you, they determine accurately the masses of a substance. While the weighing balance, which is there in your respective homes, it gives you the weight of the substance. Right. So these are the basic differences between mass and weight. Now, in laboratories, I cannot see, you make solutions in a very small quantities. You don't make solutions in a large quantity, right? Because it's not required. So it would be a complete wastage of your chemicals also. So it's not required. So you make solutions in a smaller quantities. So what you do generally is that you weigh your substance that so let's say tell you NaCl, take approximately 0.6 grams of NaCl, or I'll tell you, please take 1 gram of copper sulfate. So what I'm trying to tell you is, what I'm doing is I am giving you the amount in grams, which is a smaller quantity than kilograms. Kilograms is the SI unit for both mass and weight, right? For determining for determining the mass of any substance or weight of any substance, what the SI basic unit I've told you is kilograms, right? But kilograms is, if I tell you take 1 kilogram of copper sulfate, it is going to be a very large amount and you don't require it in laboratories. So what you do is, we do not take 1 kilogram or 0.65 kilograms of anything. What we take is we take it in grams, right? So the conversion of 1 kg to gram is that 1 kilogram is equal to 1000 grams, right? So what I will tell you is, please take 1 gram of copper sulfate. So what you're going to do is, you're just going to add 1 gram of copper sulfate approximately to your analytical balances in the laboratory, because you need to make solutions in a smaller quantities. So that is why we do not use SI units, because SI units would give me larger quantities which I don't require in laboratories. So we generally take the another unit of measurement, which is grams, in our laboratories to weigh something, or to measure something, to take the mass of some chemical substance. And this is the conversion, how you do it. Let's understand something more about the another quantity that is always associated with any matter, is its volume, right? So volume, how can you derive volume? Now you have basic units. I have told you 7 fundamental basic physical units are there, right? Now, volume of, let's say I talk about volume of any room. If I want to know volume of any room, how I am going to know the volume of any room? What will I do is, I will or if I want to know the volume of a cube or a room, anything, what I'm going to do is, the formula, basic formula is what? It is the length of the room or the cube, breadth of the room or the cube, and the height of the room or the cube. This we have done in mathematics. So the volume of the cube or the room would be its length into breadth into height. Now you all know these are all the measurements of what? These are the measurements of length, right? So length would be measured using SI unit in meters. Breadth would, you are also measuring using an SI unit in meters, and height will also be measured in an SI unit in meters, because you are measuring it lengthwise, right? You are measuring it with a maybe a scale or anything. So whatever you are doing is, whatever you are measuring via an SI unit called as meters. So meter into meter into meter will be equals to the meter cube, right? The 3 is, I think, maybe not, might be visible, but it is 3, right? So it would be meter cube. So your SI unit of volume that you have derived from where? From the basic unit, fundamental unit of length, right? So volume is derived from the basic fundamental unit, which is the length, which is equals to, the SI unit would be equals to meter cube, or I can say the length cube. It's one of the same thing, right? So this is one example where you can derive any physical quantity of the matter using the basic fundamental units, using those 7 fundamental units. Here we have used length. Okay. Now in laboratories, generally we all know that this is meter cube, this SI unit is meter cube for volume. But in laboratories, what we do is, we generally make the solution in liters, we generally make solutions in ml, right? So the conversion, again, you need to remember that, this you need to very well remember, it is 1 liter is equals to 1000 milliliters, which is equals to 1000 centimeter cube, which is equals to 1 decimeter cube. So 1 liter is basically equals to 1 decimeter cube, which is equals to 1000 milliliters, which is equals to 1000 centimeter cube. Now centimeter cube in higher, in maybe in 12th, you are also you might see centimeter cubes can also be written as cc, which is cubic centimeter. So it is one of the same thing. Either you write it in centimeter cube or you write it in cc, cubic centimeter. It's one of the same thing. So this conversion you need to remember. It's very important while you make your solutions. Now in laboratories, the solutions can be made, liquid solutions can be made using various apparatus. The first apparatus is graduated cylinder that you are going to see in a laboratory. This is sometimes also you measure your volumes using burette. You measure your volume also using pipette. You also measure your volume using beakers, and you also measure your volumes, or you make the solution to an appropriate volume using standard volumetric flask also. So these are all the apparatus that you use to measure the volume, but it is the standard volumetric flask which gives you the most accurate results while measuring the volume. That is why you make your solutions using standard volumetric flask, and these standard volumetric flask comes in 100 ml, 250 ml, 500 ml, 1 liter, right? So 2 liters. So these standard volumetric flasks gives you the volume in the most accurate way possible. A beaker, pipette, burette, graduated cylinder, as compared to these four, this gives you the best result for the volume, for measuring the volume of any matter. That is why you make solutions using standard volumetric flasks. Also, please remember the conversion from liters to centimeter cube, or centimeter cube to liters, to milliliters to liters. All these things are unitary methods that you have done in your mathematics class. So you can convert it very easily, but you just need to remember that 1 liter is equals to 1000 ml is equals to 1000 centimeter cube is equals to 1 decimeter cube, because it's going to give you a lot of help while actually calculating how much volume of the solution that you need to measure, or how much volume of the solution that you need to make in your practical laboratories. Another example wherein you can actually find out another quantity which is associated with the matter, and that is the density, and the formula for density is mass per unit volume. And you all know by now that the SI unit for mass is kgs, and for volume it is meter cube. So the SI unit of density, it would be equals to kg per meter cube. So this also you have derived it from the basic fundamental unit of mass, using basic fundamental unit called mass. So this is one another thing. The last is another quantity, very important quantity, which is always associated with any matter, is the temperature. Now temperature is basically the measurement of hotness and coldness of any substance or a matter. How cold, how hot a substance is, or a matter is equals to its temperature. And we know by that table that the SI unit of temperature is Kelvin. Okay, so basically for measuring the temperature of any matter or a substance, you have three scales. One is the basic SI unit scale called as Kelvin. The other is degree Celsius scale, and the third kind of a scale that you have to measure the temperature of any substance is Fahrenheit scale. So these are the three scales that you can see in front of you. While please remember, these Fahrenheit, Kelvin and Celsius scales, they are interconvertible also by the formulas these. So for example, I say that we all know whatever is the temperature outside that we see is in degree Celsius. So weather temperatures or temperature outside, basically we measure it by degree Celsius. So when you know that if it is 0 degree Celsius, that means it's the freezing point of water, and we all know that at 100 degree Celsius the water starts boiling, so it is the boiling point of water. Now let's say I want to convert this 0 degree Celsius to my Kelvin scale, which is my SI unit scale, right? If I want to do that, what I'm going to do, I have to use this formula, that Kelvin is equals to degree Celsius plus 273.15. That is, whatever is the temperature in degree Celsius, I just have to add 273.15 to it. I will get the temperature in Kelvin. For example, let's say I want to know that what would be the freezing point of water in the Kelvin scale. So what I'm going to do is, I know at degree Celsius scale, the ice freezes, oh sorry, water freezes at the 0 degree Celsius. So what I'm going to do, I just put 0 over here, plus 273.15 will give 273.15 in Kelvin. So in Kelvin temperature, in the Kelvin scale, the temperature corresponding to 0 degree Celsius would be equal to 273.15 Kelvin. So this would be if I am measuring the freezing point of water using Kelvin scale, it would be 273.15 Kelvin. Okay. Let's say if I want to know what would be the boiling point of water, I know in degree Celsius scale it's 100 degrees Celsius. In Kelvin scale I want to know. So what I will do, I will just put 100 over here plus 273.15. This would give me 373.15. This would be corresponding to the 373.15 Kelvin would be the boiling point of water in the Kelvin scale. Okay, this is one part. Let's say if I want to know that what is my room temperature. So room temperature in degree Celsius scale is 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, so if I want to know in what would be the room temperature in the Kelvin scale, so what I'm going to do, I just put 25 over here plus 273.15. This would be 298.15 Kelvin. So in Kelvin scale it would be 298.15, or if I just want to round it off, 298 Kelvin in the Kelvin scale would be my room temperature. Similarly, if I want to know what would be my human body temperature, I know human body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. So 37 degrees Celsius, put it 37 over here plus 273.15. So in Kelvin scale, it would be 310.15, or just round it off, 310 Kelvin in the Kelvin scale. Right. So this is what is the conversion. Whatever you know about the temperatures of degree Celsius can be converted to Kelvin, or Kelvin temperatures can be converted to degree Celsius using this particular formula. All right. Now let's come to, if I know something of degree Celsius temperature, if I want to convert it into Fahrenheit. Now Fahrenheit scale is generally used by various doctors in dispensaries and hospitals, and in our if we have a thermometer with us. So the thermometer that we use for actually finding out the body temperature, or if we have fever, if we want to find out if we have fever or not, so you will see, just see your thermometer, it would be having Fahrenheit scale. So these would be the, basically these would be the temperatures that would be marked in the thermometer. So in various dispensaries, hospitals, with doctors with us, whatever thermometer we are using to find out whether we are having fever or not, what we are actually what scale we are using is the Fahrenheit scale. Now let's say if I know 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of water, so if I want to convert, if I want to see how much would be the Fahrenheit temperature, so what formula that we are going to use is that degree Fahrenheit is equals to 9 by 5 degrees Celsius plus 32. So just put 0 over here. This entire thing would become 0. So this would be 32 degree Fahrenheit. So your freezing point of water in degree Celsius is 0 degree Celsius, but in Fahrenheit it is 32 degree Fahrenheit. If you want to calculate the boiling point, so just put 100 over here, solve it, you will get 212 degree Fahrenheit. If you want to know the human body temperature, it is 37 degrees Celsius. So 37, put 37 over here, solve the entire equation. What you're going to get is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit, which is the normal body human temperature. So if you have fever, you will be having 98 point, any temperature greater than 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. Right. So these are the two formulas that you can use to convert your degree Celsius to degree Fahrenheit, or degree Fahrenheit to degree Celsius, or you can convert your degree Celsius to Kelvin, or any temperature Kelvin to degree Celsius. So these are the basic formulas that you are going to remember to convert any temperature given in any scale to any other scale. Also remember, the last point for today's class is that the temperatures below 0 degree Celsius, that is the negative values of the temperatures, they are possible in Celsius scale, but they are not possible in Kelvin. You can see minus 4 degrees Celsius. You see in Canada it goes to minus 4. It freezes a lot when it winters. So temperatures, negative temperatures, that is below 0 degrees Celsius, negative temperatures are possible in Celsius scale, but they are not possible in Kelvin scale. The Kelvin scales are going to always have a positive values of the temperatures. So this is all for today's class. In the next class, what we are going to discuss is something more interesting, and that would be very helpful for you to in practicals when you're collecting your data and experiments and all. That is uncertainty in measurement. See you in the next class. Thank you.